most important thing is, guys, we stand for truth. So truth is what you really believe in, right? So do you stand for truth? Yes. Here is the topic. Grey hair matters more than grey matter. And here I am referring to corporate, okay? The corporate environment. What do you think in corporate environment works more? Experience matters more. Or does exposure matter more? All the experience guys, please come here. Exposure people, please come here. So you can bring in your experiences, but you know what? We are going to see which team is going to be much more vocal about putting forth the arguments. I am going to give you equal opportunity to debate this out. I have got some questions, I have got some slides, I have got some data which I would also want to share with you, because this is also in a way a learning session as well. But I would want you guys to counter each other much more than me. Are you all game for this? Yeah? I have got the first question. Okay. Do people hire for experience or exposure? What do you think? I'm going to start with this team, and then after that you can immediately get on to countering their point of view.
So we are here in the PGPX program, and this program is specifically for people with considerable experience. And we also know that when recruiters come, they come looking for experience. That is why they come, otherwise they would have gone to the other side of the tunnel. I personally think that experience is what matters in this.
Okay, so you are saying the practical thing is that people come here because of the experience and not for the exposure.
Like I come from armed forces, so there is the armed forces program also there. But I joined PGPX just for the exposure, because it's people coming from different industries, different experiences, which will give me better exposure.
Wow, so he has a personal life, he says, okay, great, thank you, he has a point.
Here is about what is getting valued more in the corporates, right? Not really in this academic environment, right? What is valued in the corporate is the experience, the level of responsibility that you will be trusted with would depend on your...
So that's a hard fact. People have experience only, then people will hire them.
We get exposed to many different kinds of skills and many different kinds of disciplines over here. But we also know as a hard fact that when the recruiter comes, they don't consider what you've got exposed to. They look at what your kind of experience that you bring to the table.
People come here and they hire us for what experience we have had in the past. But if that was the only criteria, then they wouldn't come all the way to PGPX, right? They would just because of other place we're working in. They're coming here because we get the exposure over here in that 1 year that will help us, define our personality.
Right? Why are we here in PGPX? Because we are the future leaders, right? And leaders are not born. Leaders are made with experience. They may start with exposure, but they actually make their career, or they climb up the ladder with experience.
Every position that you hire for has a budget and a salary fitment, right? If I get a person, so your PGPX would also have people ranging from 8 years of experience to 15, 16 years of experience, right? And you come under a salary bracket and you have an X salary that you've drawn. Now, if I get the same exposure and the same skill and knowledge and abilities from a person who is 8 years of experience, that person fits into a different salary bracket, which saves me some money with which I could hire somebody else. So why would I hire somebody with 15 years of experience?
You said you're hiring somebody and you have two options with a skill set but no experience, but less experience. Yes. So then it comes down to the decision of the individual, whoever is hiring, whether you want to trade it off. You want to go for a cheaper option, or you want to, if there's something more at stake, something really important, you would not want to do that. You will go for a
meeting my expectation at a lesser price point. I will definitely not select something which is cheap, but then something which is saving me money, yet giving me.
But when it comes to seeing an experience, the skill set is being practiced or implemented, that comes with experience.
Absolutely, that is what.
So there you do not have the.
Let me respond to that by something that even she said, where you said that skills cannot be fast forwarded, but there is definitely something which made MS Dhoni lead Team India, which has Sachin Tendulkar also playing for.
I'd like my friends on the other side just to take the back seat a little bit, come out and look at the big picture on two fronts. One is on their personal own front. When you have 5 years, 8 years experience while coming here, while doing the same thing day in, day out for 5 years before coming here, was one question I wanted you to ponder on. The second one, when you are advertising yourself when joining here, didn't you pitch that I had been working in so and so domain, so and so domain, so and so domain, not on the one single thing? Was that not a strong point which you pitched in? The third point, how does innovation come? How do you connect the dots? If you are stuck in the same position for 8 years, 10 years, Does that lead to your brain connecting the dots across? How did a mobile recharge of 10
Yeah, so that does not come from experience, it only came when you are pushing yourself beyond a particular limit, for which exposure is important, right? For that matter, exposure and pushing yourself goes hand in hand. It just doesn't come, it's not a time scale promotion. I will also share with you what are some of the surveys or what are some of the organizations or companies are talking about it, okay? Hiring managers are afraid to hire someone who are not aware of the industry know-how, even though they are reasonably intelligent. The fact is that a person could pick up any industry know-how within few weeks and months. But still people want to go in for X amount of experience. Your resume, does it shout years of doing tasks or achiever within a proven ability to solve problems and create a value? I mean, your resume is the best guideline which tells about you the exposure or the experience. Having said that, yes, our answer or our stand is definitely clear that we would want to value experience as well as exposure, both go hand in hand. Having said that, the debate here is not about that. The debate here is about what is important from corporate perspective. And guys, let's be fair. Everything in corporate is not fair. There are imperfections. I have a boss who will want to always, and if I'm a recruitment manager, I want 10 years guys experience. Okay, I want a red shirt and a blue trousers and a yellow cap. I mean, the type of specs which are given are ridiculous sometimes, right? But people want a fit which is possibly only a Superman will get. But that's how a lot of corporates work. The purpose of CORP MARSHAL is not only debating this, but also it's like an introspective learning. Because tomorrow you are going to be in the same position. That time when you are hiring, are you looking for exposure or experience? Right? Because what you see that is a bias in the organizations today, corporate, you should not be somebody who would advocate that or who would carry that forward. You should make sure that those imperfections then are stopped somewhere, because somebody has to take a baby. And that's the exact purpose of CORP MARSHAL about. A guy who has less amount of experience, is this guy accepted as a CEO, as a boss, as a supervisor, but somebody who under him has more experience, higher age and experience, a number of years. It doesn't happen, it has happened. It happens all the time. My boss has less experience than me, less number of years. Now, this is a statement. Now, the question is, what do you think, guys, on this? Do you think that yes, this is true or this is not true?
I'm going to share an instance of that, and you all very well know about it, that we've been trying to get the management consulting firms over. And these are the MBBs, the McKinsey, the BCG claims that we're talking about. And one of the main roadblocks which comes to that when bringing you over is that they say that the people who will be leading you will have lesser years of experience, will be comfortable with that kind of setting. And our truth, our fact is they don't think it is happening. So that is why that is one of the main stumbling blocks that they are not ready to recruit people with 10 to 12 years experience from here, because they feel that these people will have to work under people who are like 5-6 years experience.
And that's what we problem. The problem is because you guys are calling McKinsey and BCG of the world, you are not calling Laureate global. Right? So you will have a very different flow. We have taken people from non-consulting background, but on the basis of aptitude. There are people with 3 to 4 years experience who have conducted programs and facilitated CX sessions on a particular subject because their passion was there so much. I can tell you guys, once you move out of this entire exposure which you are getting for the next 1 year, this thing is going to become likely a reality. Because there would be people, who would, in the hierarchy or something, maybe have years of experience greater than you, but you become their bosses. Why? Because you have to gain that exposure.
Though I might digress slightly from the corporate structure, but when we are talking about power hierarchy, what is the common thing between Rahul Gandhi and Narendra Modi?
In this case, it will be slightly difficult because Narendra Modi has good amount of experience behind him, but he enhances exposure like nobody's business.
So many startups, they don't just start up by after your graduation or post-graduation. People do get into industry, do gain an experience and then open their startups. You hear many people saying that I'll gain some experience and then I'll delve into my own business or start up something of my own.
That's not experience, that's exposure.
Exposure to the industry.
Someone who won't try out. I'll just pick up something that Kiran was in the show at once, I read up about an interview. And she said when she was starting up, I think she was 24 or 25, and she was hiring all of the CXOs. And the person came for an interview and said that I'm here to meet the MD. So, and looked at her and gave her that look of saying, hey kid, I want to meet your MD here. She said, I am the MD. Now, we all know about Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, and she's a brand.
Let us see what respondents said to that. 46% actually agree that yes, people have this inherent bias. You don't have a grey hair, you don't have a number of years, outcomes will not be accomplished. 24% disagree, 23% is unsure of this. Why do you think corporates value grey hair more?
I think one of the primary reasons why it gets valued is just an exposed person might run with too many ideas. And the person with more experience can filter out saying that, okay, you do this, he can prioritize this list and then give the ones that can give him the maximum outcome in terms of money or experience or anything.
So there's a bias that possibly number of years is equal to competence.
Yes.
The experience not just is an indication of competence. Competence, as we can discuss, is a function of multiple different things. The wisdom that comes with the number of years behind it. So intelligence is different and wisdom is different. Wisdom you will not get without being in that role for a number of years.
I have fair amount of years of experience, but I feel today a person with maybe more than half of my overall experience of 28 years that I bring on the table, that person with 10 years can compete very, very strongly with me on wisdom and knowledge, everything. The reason is because when I started my career, that time there was no computer, no technology. We would get a mail, in handwritten format which you have to sign up. And today it's like 24/7 on your phones. You are having messages, mails, everything. So it means the exposure has overtaken the number of years anyways. Actually, the HR heads send us the profile. And in case the profile of the coach is lesser, even like 1 year, 2 years lesser than the CXO, usually the profiles are rejected. We just had sometime back this case where the person just rejected outright his profile without even going through huge amount of exposure this person has. There's such an inherent bias in terms of the gray hair and the number of years behind you. This is something which we come across immensely, authority traps. More number of years, you have a problem, the senior guy tells you, hey, hang on, I will tell you how to do this. Don't do something, I will tell you, I have enough of experience. Maybe in your environment, the technology was different, the society was different, the dynamics of the organizations were different. How do you know that what worked in your case would also work in ours? Okay, and that is why you see huge amount of friction happening between Gen X and Gen Y or millennials.
It's fun to know, when we talk about grey hair and experience, what is average experience like 40 years ago of CEOs and what is the average age of CEOs right now?
The very same point I put across to a lot of CXOs that we say that India is a young country and you have a youthful population. Actually, there could be something which is different which is happening, especially in the management field. India is actually creating a huge amount of workforce which is going to be idle in a very short amount of time, which is 45 plus years experience. The reason is a job which was so far being done by somebody who was with 50 years experience, today is being taken over by another person with 30 years, which means lower budget, less amount of my payroll costs. Okay, but a good amount of exposure and maybe some bit of exposure I will give him from my company. So this guy will move up, which means a person with 45 years plus experience who has moved on to almost an 80th percentile of a compensation in the market and is a big drain and a big liability on my current monetary resources should be moved out. And I can tell you right now, this is something which is happening today.
It's been happening.
I can tell you so many of my colleagues who are in the similar age bracket, nearing 50s, are looking out for a job and have approached that, okay, listen, I was earning 1.5 or 1.8 CR, I'm okay coming down at a 50% lower range, but get me a job in case you find. And that's what is happening across industry. So it's a scary phenomenon. So there is a big amount of pool of talented resources which is going to be available without jobs very soon. I want to just share with you some bit of research which we have done. Okay, this is HBR research. International Monetary Fund and other groups are currently predicting that some 70% of world's growth between now and 2020 will come from emerging markets. At the same time, firms in developing nations are themselves vying for talent as well as customers across the world. China, which has now 88 companies in global Fortune 500, up from just 8 in 2003. Thanks in part to foreign growth, where the leading Chinese telecommunication employs more than 70,000 people, 45 of whom work in R&D centers in countries including so and so. So while we do understand and acknowledge that there is a inherent bias for the gray hair, but that bias is going to lead to disastrous results very soon. So, as some of you were saying that in order to be successful as entrepreneurs, or somebody who became a CEO at a younger age, this guy moved from this function to this function to this function, and I was just noticing the gentleman moved to at least 3 to 4 different functions before he took over the CEO position, which means had this person only been in HR, or only been in a finance, or just in a narrow maybe project management, would this guy have become a CEO? Possibly no. So do not become just an expert in one particular area if you have to rise up. So exposure in multiple domains, multiple areas is only what is going to take you guys up, because that is something which is an important lesson for all of us here. And along with that, obviously, experience will hone the skills up. Either ways, both of them alone will not happen. Okay? Just the exposure alone will not guarantee you success alone, and neither the experience alone will guarantee the success. Okay?
I just wanted to summarize, like, on behalf of whole class, and that's what PGPX stands for, the right mix of experience.
Oh yes, absolutely. PGPX stands for good. So this was CORP MARSHAL, this first session in IIM Ahmedabad, and we had a very interesting debate. So we look forward to continuing this more and more in seasons to come. So guys, thank you very much. Round of applause for all of you.